we'll welcome it, we'll love it, but I would budget conservative, so we're budgeting the lower number there. And of course, the Metro Act 48 is where it's in the state grants, and that's a DPW for right-of-way spending, and that's just an in and out, so 150,000 in grant revenue, and then you'll see in TBW an $150,000 expense going out. So it is going up $30,000, but it's really offset by an expense going up $30,000. Bottom page 23 is our second largest revenue source, which is state sharing revenue, going up 158,000, which is roughly, I think, just under 2%. But that estimates are from the state. They estimate their numbers after the February revenue conference. So again, I think if I note it states that we are still well below the level of state share revenue that we received back in 2002 and 2003, which I believe was just over 10 million. So
statutory's down $14.
This is what it is. I got backup data for it, so it is what it is. As you can see, the statutory does not move too much because that is based on our number of residents. So it's the constitutional is where we took the large hit back in the recession days. Other than that, I mean, just keep going down. Contributions from local units. This discussion here is this is where we have the contribution from TCDC, which is really repayment of the city's investment in the Southwest apartments that is controlled by TCDC. I'm the board president, and like I said, every year the board approves this amount to be transferred to the city, but it's based on the surplus cash that are generated from those apartment complexes. If you recall, for the new members, we call it 96 voter levy. We shelled out 30 million plus in bonds to take over and buy those properties, to clean it up. And now what's going on is if there's any surplus cash, then the TCDC can reimburse the city as it's kind of reverse of investment. So that's what that line item represents, is their transfer for that reimbursement. And it's only been going on, as you can see, it's only been going on for a couple of years. So we're at the very beginning of that contribution. So. And it's all based on, it went down 250,000 because their surplus cash went down by 250,000.
Do we have any idea what we pay the company that runs our complexes down there a year?
McKinley?
McKinley.
Yeah, we pay them a percentage. It's really, I don't have everything on top of it, but we do pay them a percentage of gross rents. And on top of that, we pay them a small percentage on capital items, things like that.
Do you have any idea what a number?
I don't have a number, but I can get it.
Could you get that for me?
Could you request an email so I don't forget?
Yes.
Yeah. And I get it because I got that as TCDC board president. I got that.
Okay, good.
What does TCDC stand for again?
Taylor Community Development Corporation. And it's a 7-member board, mostly the people from the Housing Commission, because it is a component unit of the Housing Commission. So I'm on it, and then a lot of Housing Commission members are also on it.
Yeah.
Charges for services, that's a larger revenue count. That's pretty much all your charges for ALS, like the false alarms, zoning fees, a couple larger ones here. Your petty farm, like all your recreation departments, their fees come out of here. The one item to note in here, and we'll discuss, I believe we'll discuss more detail with the fire department, is the revenue for ALS.
Transporting outside.
Yep. As you can see, our current budget calls for 900,000. We took that down to about 780,000 based on new estimates, and then we went to 1.4 million for next year's budget. Looking at the trend, because we do have numbers from, I would say December was a half month, but looking at the numbers from January through February, and we did have March numbers too, that number is achievable for sure. If you recall, the average was around 1.2 to 1.4, but if we keep the average numbers up that we're collecting, this is collections, not billings, but collections.
Okay.
We believe the 1.4 is an achievable number and maybe a conservative.
And this is because the fire department is transporting again now, so we can bill more.
Correct.
So I know when we were looking at the ALS model, we were really relying upon the revenue from ALS to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So kind of where does that, I guess it's more for you, Mayor, as far as where does that put us if we're projecting less than what we were expecting?
Well, I think that the key for this to be successful is that we maintain staffing levels. I think that's the key. If you remember that when they discontinued ALS, they had minimum staffing levels, and that number was 63, I believe it was. Or our staffing level was 63. You know, that's, you know, full 20 almost officers, or police, or fire officers down. So I think for us to sustain long-term, we need to maintain those numbers, and then also maintain, you know, diligent billing practices. I think these numbers, I mean, you saw a slight adjustment in the current budget year in the negative or downward trend. That's primarily because we started later than expected. That's probably the number one factor. But I think based on this number, if we can hit this number with some of the contribution from TCDC and keep those staffing levels in place, I think we'll be able to maintain into, you know, into the future. But the key, whether it's when I'm mayor or somebody else comes in here, the key is keeping that staffing level in check. You just cannot go higher.
Yeah, you can't vary from that, okay.
I mean, 1 or 2 is one thing, if there's reasons or purpose, you know, but if you add 20 people to it, I mean, the average loading cost of $100,000, you tack on $2 million to the budget that you gotta find a revenue source for.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And one more comment I just wanted to add to that, it's just, you know, with the averages from when it was done before, it was 1.2 million with the, you know, cost of the insurances and cost of the medical going up. So going to 1.2 to 1.4 on average, I think is a good assumption, and hopefully we get more. But I mean, I think the numbers justify the 1.4. So.
Okay, thank you.
Then there's right up now, not many big major changes in that revenue area besides those 2 big amounts there.
Page 140.
Thank you.
We're just going over revenues.
Cancel the list.
And then page 25, you have your sportsplex charges in there. As you can see, just only a difference of 5,500 for the net for the sportsplex for the charges, so not much change there.
I know there's
Fines and forfeitures, that's always a big one. That's on top of page 26. What that represents is the revenue generated by court. And I'm sure we'll have a better discussion with the court when they come in. But as you can see, the 17-18 projected is going from 4.7 million, or 4,720,000 to 5,750,000. Okay? Everything that we've collected to date justifies that number, and if our averages stay the same, we'll be a little bit higher than that number, but a conservative approach. The traffic detail or the court fines or whatever the case is generating a large amount of revenue that's way more than what we anticipated when we did the original budget. So the $1 million increase is justifiable on the budget side based on the actual to date. And then the number that you see for next year, 6.2 million, that actually, again, based on the averages, can be attainable, but that was what the court put in. The court gave us that number, so we didn't want to change it and allow them to discuss that item.
Okay.
But if the averages stay up for the whole year, you can arguably reach that number, but again, we just left that number, we'll let the court address that number when they come up. So, but again, the program is, for a revenue source, the program is doing very good. Then the next department is just interest and rents. And just for some of the new members, you know, in regards to the interest and rents department, when you see major street rentals and local street rentals, what that is that the general fund out of the DPW buys equipment that is in turn charged to the Act 51 major local roads.
Okay.
It's a better system of doing it because we're allowed to charge the Act 51 rates for each equipment piece. So the rentals of those equipment comes out of these line items. So that's what that represents. And then you have a few other smaller rentals in there from the rec center and some CBD rentals. What's that?
What was CDBG rent?
They rent the offices upstairs. We charge them a rent for that.
Oh, okay.
So we charge the program for that rent.
Gotcha.
Other revenue, one of the bigger sources here is you have some, well, basically, most of them are one-time adjustments, like your land sales, which are related to development agreements last few years, or if we sell any property, it comes out of that account, equipment sales.
Jason, are there
Yeah.
specific properties targeted on these land sales? You referenced in your write-up, you know, the reduction from what we projected in 17, 18.
Correct.
Is that tied to a specific property or
It
property?
is, which is, again, we went on the conservative approach, because the mayor can talk to this too, but there is some movement, or at least something went on, but this is related to the timber edge, related to the timber edge over by the.
On Goddard down there?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's just a title issue. So when we attempted to close, we enlisted the help of Michigan Title, and what we found is what's called a Scribner's error. So basically, when this went to auction, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever, it was recorded something to the extent of the property located on the northeast corner, and in fact, it was the property located on the northwest corner. So Michigan Title would not clear the title and allow us to close, so Dave Greco had to go through the process, what's called clearing of the title, and I think we now have a clear title, and there's a closing date of April 20-something. It's coming up in the next 2 weeks, so we're finally going to close on that property. That delay, though, has no effect of us or the buyer. It's just a procedural delay of the title.
But it affects him from moving forward.
It affects the process for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do anything until they close on it.
Because I get like, when are you gonna do something? You
Right,
know,
I know.
They came a year
I
ago,
didn't know
why
that.
ain't they doing it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, because there's.
When is Menards
Yeah.
opening?
Okay, okay.
But you're saying that as